Now, I know that you want to hear how you can make your marriage better, and we made our marriage better in the last couple of years by doing this one thing, and it may surprise you.
You know what? Statistically speaking, you could reduce the chance of divorce by almost 50% by doing this one thing.
Welcome to the Intentional Leadership Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about that most important relationship, marriage. Now, if you have a partner, that significant other in your life, I know that you want to make your marriage better. Your marriage may be good, but you can always make it better. And we want to talk about some things that we've done that have really worked for us. And we also want to share, as we work with other entrepreneur couples, how they have taken their relationship and made it better.
Yeah, you know what? We have a lot of things we do together. We work together, we live together, and sometimes it's challenging. It's not easy for anybody to stay married or be married, especially married to me. So one of the first things that we do is we practice better communication.
Definitely. And we actually started out our marriage this way. I mean, Graham and I, this is our second marriage, and we were committed to spending the rest of our lives together. And we wanted to make sure that we had the commitment and that we did the work so that the marriage could last.
Right.
And one of the first things that we did before we even got married is we took some communication assessments and communication tests to really learn about each other and how we communicate. And that is a really helpful tool if you haven't done it.
Right. So many times we do this at work, and you talk to somebody, oh, I've done that one, I've done that test, have you done it with your spouse? Because that's who you're spending your time with. That's who you really need to take this test and compare with and learn, because it creates a common language.
Right.
If you're a doer, then you know that your spouse might not be. They may be an analyzer, or they may be a communicator. And how do you two work together? That's important.
Exactly. Well, and we kind of stumbled into this because you're certified in the Berkman personality assessment, and we've been bringing that into CEOs and business teams for a number of years. And I remember we brought it in, and this one CEO took it, and right after, as we were going through the results with him, he said, I need to have my wife take this. This would be so helpful for her to better understand me, for me to better understand her. And so we said, that's a great idea. Why don't we do that? And that's exactly what we did. And now, as part of our regular practice, we are doing this assessment with couples, and it really helps to improve the communication. But let's talk about the different styles of personality and how that brings about strengths in a relationship and how it can potentially harm the relationship if you're not aware of it.
Right. Well, you have the thinker. They're more reserved, they're creative. They want to be around people, but on their own terms. And so if you're that person, yes, you want to be around your family and maybe in a small group, but you're going to have close, intimate relationships with friends and not be out there. And then another more reserved type person, and the most reserved, would be the analyzer. That person, your house is meticulous probably. You don't want the kids to step on the vacuumed spaces. You're always cleaning. Your refrigerator's organized. The spices are alphabetized. And everything's got an order and a place. And you probably don't have a whole lot of outside friends. And so this spouse is the most important.
Right, exactly. And you could have a communicator who's just really outgoing, has lots of friends, maybe isn't as organized and doesn't have things as perfect in the house. And so there can be some conflict that way if it happens that way. Or that person also loves to go out and socialize, but if you're married to someone who prefers to stay home, that can create some conflict too. And really important to understand what's important to the other person, and you've got to give and take a little bit.
Right. And then the final person would be the doer, and they're outgoing and they want to get tasks and things done. And so they're alphabetizing the spices and also being out there with friends. And they don't sit still. They're oftentimes more restless. And so it's hard. If you're a doer and you're married to a thinker, they don't want to be out doing things. They just want to be quiet, maybe reading a book more. And as the doer, you're out mowing the lawn and and you know all the neighbors by name. So you just have to be careful on how you can communicate together.
Right. And understanding that this is the person and this is the person your spouse was born to be, and you don't want to change that about him. It's probably one of the things that you loved about them getting married before you got married. Then once you got married, you realized that those differences obviously began to create some conflict. So understanding how your spouse is wired and not trying to change them, but trying to adapt together to talk about it so you understand what the personality test, of course, is very helpful, but having conversation too about what's most important to you and that sort of thing.
Right. So starting with the communication style or test, the Berkman, for instance, is a great way to start open dialogue. What's another thing we can do?
Well, I think spending time together is so important. And I say this because I know that we're in a better place right now because our kids are grown, and some of you may be listening today and your kids are out of the house, so you feel like you have a little bit more time together. But we have a lot of CEOs that are part of our community that are right in the midst of their career, the height of their career, and they have kids at home that they're taking from one activity to the other, and they're very, very busy with all of those activities, and it's really hard to have that time with their spouse. You may feel, if you're in that position, that you're either at work and you're in meetings there, or you're carting the kids back and forth, and that is just the season of your life, and you think, I'll have time for my spouse later. But let me tell you, it's really important to have an intention regarding spending time just with that spouse, because we know marriages that haven't worked because they just didn't spend that intentional time together while their kids were growing, while their business was growing, that all of a sudden they kind of got to a more level place in their business where they had a little bit more time to spare. Their kids were grown or had a little bit more independence, and there wasn't a relationship anymore because there wasn't just the time being spent. So important to be intentional about that time.
Right. So date night. Be a great way to spend time together. Or you could have check-ins. Just, hey, we're going to have a check-in. And every day after dinner, you're going to check in with, hey, how was your day?
I like that.
Those would be two simple ways to do that.
That's good. I think that it's so important to do some unplugged vacation time together. I mean, I've talked to a number of spouses in our community that they haven't taken vacation, period. Or if they do, it's always with their kids, always with their family. And it's so important.
And their phone.
And their phone, that's true. It's so important that you take that unplugged time together where you can be away from your phone. That's so true, because we were just talking about that with our entrepreneur group, where so many people are going on vacation. They're proud that they're taking vacation, but they're really not being present with their spouse because they are on their devices. They're still checking in with work every day, and they're maybe physically there, but they're not really there and present.
We went just recently on a trip, and I walked around the pool where people were there hanging out, and in the little gazebos, one after another, were people working on their laptop. And this was a vacation. Not all of them were on vacation, but a lot of them were, because I went up and talked to them. I said, hey, what are you doing? Why is your laptop out? Well, I'm working. And it was supposed to be their vacation. And their kids are in the pool. Go play with your kids.
Right.
It's hard. It's hard to unplug.
It is, for sure.
So with that, another thing to do would be find an activity the other person wants to do. Don't assume or do what you want to do. So I think with, I want to ride a bike, so maybe you should ride a bike. Or maybe that's a really bad idea. Well, I should just pick another activity I like to do.
Only because I've had a couple biking incidents when we've biked together, so.
But really, we should do something the other person likes to do.
No, that's true. No, my daughter actually said that I shouldn't be on anything motorized for a while.
Or certainly with wheels.
I tend to go a little fast. Tends to get us in trouble.
Or don't pay attention.
I don't know. Get a little distracted while I'm doing it. But
anyway, you could go hiking, you could go biking, you could go swim, go to the movies, do an activity that the other person likes to do. I think that would be really important.
And something you can do together, because it's, it's very, very often that spouses will go their separate ways and they'll have their own activities that they like. I mean, one might like to golf and the other doesn't. And so they don't do that as an activity together. Or one may be a runner and runs every day, but the other doesn't. And so they're not able to participate in that. Maybe there's a real difference in fitness levels, which can happen. So have the conversation about what activities or hobbies can you do together. Maybe you can start something up. I mean, I know we know some people, it's getting really popular now. The pickleball is, playing pickleball together, and our daughter and her partner actually are playing tennis together. So whatever it is that you can be able to do together, something that you can enjoy.
Right.
Whatever that may
They're
be.
even shooting hoops, which is really funny.
Oh, that's
to me.
cute.
Yeah, I was like, wow, okay.
No, that's really great.
Yeah. Another thing, prank your partner. I mean, play games with your partner.
Did you just say prank your partner?
Oh, maybe.
Oh, yes. If you have somebody who's competitive and likes to play jokes, you've got to be a little bit careful of the games that you're willing to play. But playing games is a great way to shut off the TV or get away from your technology, is doing things like that together for sure. Book club with your spouse. If you like to read, this is something that we like to do together, and we know other couples that will read a book and then talk about it, and we do that, and that's a fun thing to do. You do it with our kids as well.
Right. Yeah, I'll read a book and talk about it with anybody. And with you, I have to just make sure I'm reading faster than you. That's my biggest.
Oh, I don't know if you have this at all. If you both have Kindles or a reading device, you can see how far, if you're reading the same book, the other person is. How far are you in your book? I'm not sure why it has to become a competition.
It's the way we're wired.
It's the way we're wired. That's true. That makes it fun. It's a game at the same time.
Right. And if you're having trouble with communicating and you like games, or even if you don't like games and you're having trouble communicating, find some communication games. There are a couple communication games out there, and we haven't done it quite. I mean, I just stumbled across this,
Okay.
but Lingual is one. Healthier Together was another one.
Oh.
But if you just go search for it, there's some games out there that just open up the communication lines, and it's kind of fun. It looked like fun anyway. And you could not only do it with your spouse, but you could do it with your kids, friends, something like that. So
Right. I love it. And with Valentine's Day around the corner, that's always a good time to do a little extra love notes and things like that. Maybe a love letter,
well, you
cards.
with a love letter, you could do that once a month. Go into chat, ask chat, hey, I want to write a love letter once a month to my spouse. Give me 12 prompts to talk what I should talk about.
Oh, okay. You're going down that road, and I thought, we're not going to have chat write the love letter. Oh my goodness.
That's even better. I love that idea.
No, I don't want the prompts.
I was just thinking of the prompt of when I first met you, what I thought, or my 5 favorite things about you, or my favorite thing we did this last year.
Okay,
is
so some questions that they would get you to think about. Oh.
You could start the art, not, oh, hey, chat, could you write a love letter for me? It's March 1st, and I want to write something that has to do with March. I think that's a great idea. I'm going to write a letter.
I would love that. I would love a
All 12
letter.
of them, Chat GPT. Anyway.
I think being grateful for each other and actually talk about that. One of our friends, Annie Love, who's actually, is it Annie? It's not Love. Can't remember. Annie Lala, who's a love coach.
She's awesome.
And she said to ask the question. She actually was talking about her kids, but it's really great with the spouse too, is how do you feel when you're loved by them? So when one of you does something that you feel loved by, that you just say, I really feel loved when you do this. So as an example, we're on vacation right now. We're traveling and doing a little bit of work, but taking some unplugged time too. And we don't have an espresso machine here. And I came downstairs the other day and met you at the door. You had just come back from the gym. And he had a latte in hand from the local coffee shop. And nothing makes me feel more loved than an amazing roasted espresso from a local barista, somebody who does a really great job with their coffee. So that was just a little thing, but it definitely made me feel very loved.
Good.
So thinking about those things and then telling your spouse, I see that what you did, and it makes me feel loved by you.
Another way to do that, because Anne is great with the questions she asked when we started talking to her. It's like, wow, I never thought. She's a deep thinker. But put a jar or a bowl on the table with a notepad next to it, little stickies. And every time something happens, you write what you're grateful for, or what you're thankful for about your spouse. Put them in the bowl. And then date night, Friday night, Saturday night, Thursday night, whatever night it is, grab the bowl, grab the things out of it. And when you're out at dinner, read them to each other. Just randomly pick them up.
That's really neat. I like that idea. I think we should do that.
Yeah.
Have a jar and put little notes in it, little love notes, little thoughts like that. I think that's a great way. I don't think that we tell each other how much we appreciate each other. And, for us, we've been married 14 years, and it doesn't matter if you've been married a year, you've been married 50 years, your spouse always wants to hear what they mean to you, and I think that that's really important for you to tell your spouse how much you appreciate them and how you adore them. I think it's important.
Yeah.
So my parents were a wonderful example of this. We married 69 years, and it was wonderful how they were still holding hands and saying kind things to each other, loving on each other, and they were together all the time, and just really a testament to us on what a loving marriage looks like. They just really served and cared for each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And with them, something that they really did as well is they always were learning.
That's true.
So there's something that you could do is learn something new together.
Right.
Take salsa, take music, go learn painting, art, pottery, something like that.
I like that.
But do that together. Pick something. And maybe you do two. One that one wants to do, one the other wants to do.
Right. I like that. And even just a simple activity like going to the movies. We don't do that very often. And we went out the other night, and it was a really rainy day, and so there was not going to be any beach time. And so we said, we haven't seen the movie Boys in the Boat. And it was still playing in the theaters, and so we went out to see that movie. Great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. And it was just a really fun thing to do. It was one of those theaters where you could sit back and put your feet up, and we just really enjoyed that. Right. So, that's a simple thing. And if you want to have a movie night at home is another thing that you can do.
Yeah, that's fun.
So we made a promise. We made a promise that we would give this amazing statistic earlier in the podcast of what is something that really can help to build a better marriage. And all of these things can help for sure, but we found that this one thing really made a difference in our marriage, helped us build a better marriage in the last couple of years. So you want to share that statistic?
You eat food together?
No.
Oh, yes. So according to the Journal of Relationships and Love, they did a research study, and it's pretty universally known that divorce is about 50%. And whether it's your first one, your second, whatever it is, it's all, you put it all together, it's not great. However, this one thing changes it, and it reduces it by almost 50%. And that is going to church and praying together. And that doesn't mean going to church, Christmas and Easter and being a C&E Catholic kind of thing. That means going to church, actively participating in church, as well as actively praying together. So spending that time to stop, lift up all and everything, and just you're looking beyond yourself. And so you're it's not about you at that point.
Right.
So the number one thing you can do to make your divorce go from about 50% to 26% is go be active at church and actively pray as a couple.
And for us, when we started on early in our marriage, we prayed separately. We had our own quiet time, but we didn't actively pray together. And we were actually challenged by another older couple to pray together. And we did this 40-day prayer challenge, and Pastor Mark Batterson has a great book, The Circle Maker, and then a 40-day prayer challenge that goes along with it. And we did this together. If we said, we love these challenges, of course. So if you're a high achiever, you're going to love any kind of a challenge. So we thought, well, sure, let's do this 40-day prayer challenge. So every day we found the time. Typically we did it after dinner, but sometimes we did it in the morning. We fit it in where we could fit it in. But every day we did this small reading together, and then we prayed together. And we thought about what were some of the most important things that we cared about, that we just really felt that it was important and maybe hadn't surrendered it to God. And what a difference that made, doing that time together on a regular basis. And it also allowed us, it was just a reason to come together and talk about what was going well and maybe what some of our concerns are, because sometimes for you and for me, we'll let things fester inside. And maybe you do this too, and you don't share it with your spouse. But if you're setting a time every day, whenever that may be, quickly first thing in the morning or in the evening, around dinner, or maybe before bed, that you come together and you just have a check-in about your day, and then you pray about those needs together.
That was good.
Right. It really has made a difference in our life and our connection, and just really knowing what some of the concerns were on your heart, and you knew what was on mine, and a way just to surrender it, because we're not in control, and it's wonderful that we have a God who is. So it made a difference for us, for sure.
Right. And it just made some clarity for us in many cases. So, what is it really that is important to us?
Right. Right.
And is it important to both of us? Is it important to one of us? And if not, maybe we just scratch it off and it doesn't make the list. So that's great.
That's true. Well, everybody wants to have a long-term loving relationship. I mean, we want to have a marriage that lasts and is beautiful and healthy, like my parents. And the legend Toby Keith just passed away recently, and he was married over 40 years, and he talked about how his wife was so supportive of him all through their marriage, and also the fact that they really leaned on their faith as a way to keep their marriage strong as well.
I thought it was red Solo cups, but no, it was. It was amazing that reading his story and their story. It was pretty special. So, any
other tips to build a better marriage that we haven't thought about, that we haven't said today?
You know what? If you need a counselor, go to a counselor. Don't be ashamed.
That's a really good point.
It's helpful.
So many people need counselors and haven't gone to one, and just think that it's getting a little bit better in this day and age, fortunately. But there used to just be such a problem. You thought, if I'm not going to go to a marriage counselor because that means there's something really wrong with your marriage. Well, I think healthy marriages are willing to actually look at their life and want to be able to build a better marriage, and have a therapist to be able to talk to about it and help them improve communication and other things.
Right.
Yeah, not waiting. Marriage retreats can be really great, doing things like that.
That's good.
I know another tip that I just thought about that I think has been important to us and makes a difference, and that is having other couples that are aligned with you and with your values, that are couples that you can look up to and that you admire, and have healthy marriages, and that you're coming together with them and you're doing both fun things together. You're going out with another couple who you really like and enjoy spending time with, and you can encourage each other too.
Yeah, and I think that part of that needs to be that they need to be younger people and older people.
That's great.
Because the older ones have a little bit more wisdom, some unique perspectives that maybe you just don't understand or you haven't thought of yet. They're in a different stage of life. And the younger ones, you can mentor them and help them.
Right.
And they may have a different perspective that's actually useful too.
I think if you're someone too who has kids that are older, we're at the point now where we have kids now that are married, that it's really an opportunity to have some wonderful conversations and also times together with them as a couple. It's just made me think about it when you said younger and older people and you could learn from each other. I think that we have a real opportunity to be mentors to our kids, to be friends with our kids as they're older, so that it's not so much the parent that you're telling them what to do, but you're there as an advisor, as a support, Because let's face it, marriage is not easy in this day and age, and you want to be able to be there and support them in any way that you can.
That's good.
Yeah. I think something that goes without saying, but we probably should say it, is just the fact of being very intentional about being present when you're with your spouse. We talked about this a little bit before about the phone being such a distraction. So I think as you plan this time together, whether it's mealtime, whether it's that date night, whether it's that unplugged vacation, that you truly make the commitment in advance, and maybe even some rules that the phone's not going to be with us when we go out to dinner. That's going to be put aside. We're not going to have that. We're going to be able to really spend the time talking to each other and being together.
Count my macros if I do that?
That's true. Well, we won't have to do that too much longer.
Oh, just forever. Anyway, so we came up, that's a lot more than just the 8 we thought of. And there's so many great things that you can do to build the relationship. Share some with us. Let us know what works for you and what you like to do to try and do that. Build that relationship, build the communication between you and your spouse or you and your kids.
Yes, what are some examples of how you've built a better marriage that you'd like to share with us? And if you do that, we'll share it with our community too. And let's just come around and support each other. Let's make sure that we are being intentional to make this most important person in our life really a priority in our life.